on the first unit, a lesson called A Portrait of a Lady. A portrait, what do you mean by a portrait? Yes, portrait means a picture of a lady. Here, the author is Khushwant Singh. He is an Indian writer and he is also a lawyer, a novelist who studied in St. Stephen's College, New Delhi. And also, he joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1947. Then, as a writer, he is best known for his keen secularism, sarcasm, and love for poetry. He served as an editor of several literary and news magazines, as well as 2 newspapers. Khushwant Singh was awarded with the Padma Bhushan in 1974, Padma Vibhushan by the Government of India, and Sahitya Academy Fellowship by Sahitya Academy of India. The Mark of Vishnu, A History of Sikhs, The Train to Pakistan, Success Mantra, We Indians, and Death at My Doorstep are some of his brilliant works. Out of all his works, we are very much interested in studying this portrait of a lady. The lesson says that the grandma who loved him the best is portrayed here. How many of you have grandmas? Do they love you very much, and how many of you love your grandmas? Is here the author Khushwant Singh gives a very good detailed history of his grandma. Always his grandma was with him because his parents were out of station, and the grandma was so loving and tender hearted. So she used to make the child Khushwant Singh when he was a small boy and wake him up early in the morning, bathe him, and then prepare all his breakfast and make him ready to school. So she used to pack his pen and also pen stand and slate and all these things in a small bundle, and she used to carry it along with him to the school. On the way, some dogs used to come behind. So she used to give them some chapatis which are made the previous day, and sometimes it might become stale. She used to feed the dogs on the way. So as soon as they reached the school, she used to sit in a temple reading the scriptures, while Khushwant Singh was inside the school and he was reading some lessons such as English and alphabets and all these things. After finishing his studies, he used to come back and the grandma used to bring him back to home. This was going on for a certain period. Later on, when Khushwant Singh wanted to go for higher studies, she was separated from his companion because he had to go to the university to study. There the link between the grandma and the grandson was a little bit far away. So she started to spin and do some other works at home and reciting the poems, prayers, and sitting in the veranda and putting breadcrumbs to all the birds which have come there. Sometimes the birds used to come and sit upon her legs, shoulder, and even on her head. So such things are going on like this. Once when Khushwant Singh returned from his university studies, she directly went to the station and received him, kissed him, and brought him back to home. So soon after his arrival, she started to celebrate the arrival of her grandson. So while she was celebrating, she used to beat the tom-tom, that is the drum, and she recited prayers, and suddenly it stopped. And soon she became delirious with fever and fell sick. The next day in the morning she passed away, and she was taken for burial, that is the funeral. And some birds, they came to the house. So the author's mother put some breadcrumbs, but the birds refused to take them because they too mourned for the death of the grandma. So author Khushwant Singh is so much attached to his grandma that he felt very sad on her demise. So such is a very good lesson here, and we can see how the author is describing the grandma, his grandfather, and all the inmates in the home, and on the way to school, and also his her last days. These are the important key points of this lesson, and questions will be asked on such points only. Describe the grandfather as seen in the portrait. In the family there was a portrait hanging, that is the author's grandfather. So how to describe him, that will come for 2 marks. The grandfather's photo was hung on the wall, and it had the grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece. What do you mean by mantelpiece? Mantelpiece is a piece of cloth there in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and a loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least as 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. So the appearance of the grandfather was very old. So that is the description of the grandfather. Then you see, why was the author left with his grandmother in the village? Why was the author brought up by the grandmother? What about his parents? Their parents were away. They were residing in a city. And here the Khushwant Singh was brought up by his grandmother. So she took full care over the child, and she was very much interested in his studies. So that is the great thing that a grandmother can do. So as a result, the author was left with his grandmother in the village under her care. Then where did the author study in his childhood? The author studied in the village school, which was very close to his house. And the school had a small temple nearby, whereas the grandmother used to sit there and recite her prayers, and Khushwant Singh used to study his lessons in the school. Then why did the grandmother accompany the author to school? See, because the author was very small, he was very young and he was like a child, so somebody had to accompany him. Here the grandmother had so much of attachment with the child, so she accompanied the author to school. Then what made the dogs follow the grandmother after school hours? So after the school hours, she had the remaining chapatis, some stale chapatis, so the dogs used to have that. The grandmother used to throw those chapatis to the dogs. Therefore the dogs also followed the grandmother. Then you see, why didn't the grandmother feel sentimental when the author went abroad for higher education? So when the author went for higher education abroad, she was very much interested in her studies, in his studies. Therefore, she did not feel any sentiment. She wanted her grandson to go for higher studies and study well. That was her intention. Therefore, she did not feel sentimental during his separation. Then you see, what was the happiest time of the day for grandmother? When Khushwant Singh was away abroad, she felt lonely, but she kept herself happy amidst the birds who came there to pick up the grains which she fed them. So she used to throw some grains and all sorts of birds used to come there, and she was there and she used to spin the wheel and be with the birds. They were all chirping around her, sometimes sitting on her legs, sometimes on her shoulder. So that was the happiest time of the day for the grandmother. இது இவ்வளவு இப்போ ஷார்ட் கொஸ்டின்ஸு சும்மா அப்படி சொல்லி முடிச்சிருக்கிறேன். இன்னுமே பிக் கொஸ்டின்ஸ் வருது, எப்படி சொல்கிறது? ஓகே, நவ் லெட்ஸ் சி short questions as well as in a small paragraph the description of the whole lesson. First of all, That's a question. Describe the author's grandmother. That's a very, very important question in the lesson because the title itself is The Portrait of a Lady. The lady here is the author's grandma. So the author portrays his grandmother as an old as one could be with a wrinkled face. How do people see they have wrinkled face? Wrinkled means surukavul. So that is in Tamil. And she was short and fat and slightly bent. She was a little bit short, and then she was a little bit fat and also bent in stature. Then in her youth, she has been very pretty. What's the meaning of pretty? Pretty means so beautiful. So in her young stage, she had been very beautiful. Then she walked around the house unsteadily in spotless white clothes. So the grandma used to wear white saris, and that was very white without even a small dot of dirt there. And she walked around the house unsteadily because due to her age. She was not able to walk in a very majestic way. And she used to put one hand on her hip just to balance her body and the other hand with the rosary. She was having a rosary in her hand. What do you mean by rosary? Rosary is a prayer chain. So they used to tell prayer after rolling the beads in the rosary. So she had a rosary in her hand, and the other hand it was laid on the hip just to balance her body because she was a little bent, so she is wearing that. She is having the hand on the hip. Then her lips said the prayers and her white hair scattered on her wrinkled face. So her lips were going on telling the prayers, whereas due to wind her white hair was falling on the wrinkled face. She was so beautiful with the peacefulness, serenity and contentment. You cannot see such a lady nowadays. You see, she was so beautiful even in her old age, and then she had a peace of mind and also calm. Serenity means very calm and silent, and contentment means full of satisfaction. She didn't crave for anything. She was so beautiful, so peaceful, and she was so calm and fully satisfied. This is the nature of the grandma. So when you are asked to write this question, you can write these 6 points. Number 1 is she was as old as one could be with a wrinkled face. The second point is she was short and fat and slightly bent. So second point. Third one is in her youth she would have been very pretty. That same beauty is seen even now. She walked around the house unsteadily with the spotless white clothes. Then the next point you can write is she used to put one hand on the hip to balance her body and the other with the other hand with the rosary to tell the prayers. Then her lips was going on reciting the prayers, as well as while she was doing so, the white hair was falling on her face. Finally, she was beautiful, she was peaceful. She was so beautiful with full of peaceful mind, then serenity and contentment. These points will be sufficient for this question of describing the author's grandmother. Coming to the next question, what was her daily task at home? This is a very important question because she has very much care over her grandson. So the routine task done by her is given in also some 6 points are there. You can note it down. The grandmother would wake up early in the morning and would get him ready for school. She also used to get up early in the morning and make the author also to get up early in the morning. That is first point. Then she plastered his wooden slate, prepared breakfast and took him to school. So she made arrangements for all his school objects to take to school as well as his breakfast. Then the next point is she accompanied the author to school, because the author being a small boy, she wanted to accompany him to the school. That's the third point. Then she also took some stale chapatis to feed the street dogs on her way. So the previous day there were some chapatis remaining. So in order not to waste them, she used to carry them also, and on her way to school, some street dogs used to accompany her. So she used to throw those chapatis to them. Leaving him at school, she would sit inside the temple and would read the scripture. There at school, she used to leave the child in the school and she used to sit in the temple and go on reading the scriptures there. And then she would return home with her grandson in the evening. So these are the main points of her daily task at home. Once again, I shall repeat. She used to get up early in the morning and make the author also to get up early. Then she prepared the wooden slate and also prepared his breakfast to the school. Then she accompanied the author to the school. That is the third point. Then she also took some stale chapatis to put them to the street dogs on her way. Then the next one is leaving him at school inside, she used to sit in the temple and would read the scripture. Finally, after the school is over, she would return home with her grandson. So these are the daily routine of the grandmother. So are you clear? Is everybody clear of this? Okay. Shall we go to the next question? How is school education in the village different from that in the city? Not like nowadays, you see, there was a difference could be seen in village education as well as city education. Here also there are some 5 points, you can make it very clear. In his early stage, education was given in a village school. So Khushwant Singh was given education in the village school in his home village. Then they were taught the alphabet, prayer songs, patriotic songs in chorus. So what are the subjects that the child learnt in the village school is alphabet, prayer songs, patriotic songs, and they did it in chorus. So what do you mean by alphabet? Say A, B, C, D, when we say all these things, they are called alphabet. Never say alphabets, it is only alphabet. So they taught alphabet, prayer songs and patriotic songs in the school. Then they had a limited reading and arithmetic and writing. Only a few passages were given for reading and they did a little bit of arithmetic. What do you mean by arithmetic? It is mathematics. And also they have given a little bit of writing work. So they had a limited reading, arithmetic and writing. In city schools, children were taught English, science and music in a very vast manner. So there is a difference between the school studies and the village studies. Finally, there was no teaching about God and scriptures in the city schools. So this was the difference between the village school and the city school. Once again, I will make you remind these points. In his early education at the early stage, the author was given education at the village school. That is number 1 point. There in the village, they were taught alphabet, prayer songs and patriotic songs. Then they had limited reading, arithmetic and writing. That's all. This only was the studies at village. In schools in city, children were taught English, science and music, but they were not given teaching about God and scriptures. This was lacking there in the city schools. So you can see the difference between the village school as well as the city school.